But there's some days that you have to get up in the morning and like define for you today, like what does good look like? Like what would make me feel successful today?
Right.
And so when I think of imposter syndrome, the way that I like to define it is that we lack confidence in our competence.
Yes.
And we're afraid of somebody else finding out.
Ooh.
Right? Like I think that's really
so
what
good.
it comes down to. Many unique situations where I've thought to myself that like, I don't know if I deserve to be here, right? And if we change the way that we think, we can change our trajectory in such amazing ways. But again, it's not about a prescription, you need perspective, right? And we think about this idea of confidence, we really get confidence from 4 different places. So one of them is...
Welcome to Behind the Spotlight podcast, where your story matters. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, and I'm on a mission to empower and educate you towards your greatness. On this podcast, we go behind the scenes to shed light on the experiences and perspectives of individuals making waves in their fields. Also, on this show, my goal is to help you learn ways to turn your thoughts into action. You'll also learn from individuals who share personal experiences and actionable steps to create the life you desire. So get ready to get inspired and grow stronger. I encourage you to open up your heart and be ready to receive. Now let's dive into today's episode.
Okay, everyone. So I'm here with Dr. Lindsay Roberts of Lindsay Roberts. Lindsay, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. Happy to be here, Danielle. So excited.
I'm excited for you to be here because, honey, you are just phenomenal. Like, I love the relationship we've been developing since we've met each other.
Same, yeah.
In December.
Has it only been that long? I feel like I've known you for so much longer
I
than
know.
that. But like, I just appreciate so much about you. I feel like every time we're together, I like learn something new. There's so many things that I admire about you. Like it is so cool to be here with you.
Aw, the feeling is mutual, honestly. So I appreciate it. And so people have the opportunity to get a behind the scenes look of our speakers this year, which is like so amazing. So you're going to be one of the speakers on Saturday. That's all about activating your mission. And so, but your topic is mainly on imposter syndrome, which I'm super excited about. But before we even dive into that, I always like to give people kind of like a foundation of who you are and basically who you are beyond your title. So when people see Lindsay, I know like in the Topeka community, people were used to you working at Evergy.
Yep.
Now you've like transitioned to a new role. And even like this doctor title, honey, let's get to that. Like I'm curious, like at your age, how did you accomplish that? Did you see yourself as like a doctor? Let's start there.
Yeah. Okay. So did I see myself as a doctor? No. Do I still see myself as a doctor? I'm probably like bright red in the face right now because it still makes me feel uncomfortable. But okay, so where to even start? So yeah, I was born and raised in Topeka, love this community, love being a part of this community. And yes, I spent a lot of time at Evergy working in learning and development. So anything and everything to do with people is really what I'm passionate about. And I think my tagline for life is the bottom line is relationships matter. So for anybody who's been around me or worked with me, I just think the ability that we have as people to come together, to support each other, to learn so much from each other, to be a part of all these things, like relationships are so critical. And so how did I accomplish my doctorate? It goes back to relationships because I started this, I had this like dream in mind that I wanted to be a doctor when I grew up. Now, mind you, not medical doctor. That's like a whole different world, not respect to all those people. I really, there's no way I can do it. Like hospitals freak me out. So I went the like academic route. But so I just loved to learn, and I love to learn about people. And so my question for myself is always like, how can I continue doing better, right? So my background's in sport and performance psychology, which is all about how do I help people wherever they are and whatever they're doing, just get a little bit better. And I got to this point in my career where I was thinking like, man, I've been out of school for a while. I've kind of been in this whole talent development space for a while. And I was deathly afraid of like getting stale. And I was like, how do I keep learning? What is it I need to do to challenge myself? If I'm asking people to challenge themselves every single day, like I need to do the same thing, right? So I started school back in 2019, And shortly after I started, I found out I was expecting baby number 2. So that was a whole new world.
Right.
And I was like, well, do I keep doing the school thing?
my
Do I not?
God.
I don't know. Then fast forward, baby number 2 came right the week after the world shut down with COVID. And so that was a whole new world.
Right.
And I think just throughout all of this, really what kept me going is I just have such an amazing group of family and friends.
Yeah.
Like tossing a divorce in the midst of all of these things. And so much was changing in life. But I could not have done it. When they say that it takes a village, oh my God, trust me, it takes a village. Like my mom is my rock and I appreciate her so much. And I have just such good people around me. And it really just comes down to like, I was dedicated to doing this thing. Like I had this dream, I had this mission that I wanted to accomplish and I was going to get there. And I knew that at some point in time I needed help. So I asked for help and my village, boy, did they step up.
Wow. That's so beautiful. Okay. Can I just say that I also am a firm believer of like, don't judge a book by its cover, because I remember meeting you and when you did like kind of slip in there in your presentation, you're like, yep, I've had a divorce. I've been through a divorce. I'm like, what? Like where? Like just because like your demeanor and like your presence and even like your overall presentation, first of all, I was like truly like admired by, because there was just something about you that like the way that you present, you have a way of like captivating someone's eye and keeping their attention their entire time. Whereas like certain presentations, like, you know, you're like, all right, what's next? Like, come on, let's go. But you have this thing to where even after I'm like, Lindsay, who's your coach? Because like the way that you present and speak at the same time is so fluent. Like it's a beautiful thing. And so I'm really excited that people are going to have the opportunity to experience that. But going back to who you are at your core and how you've like developed to be, because I think that's a beautiful thing. Like it's a part of your story that first you said, I'm going to continue going after this degree because it like means something to me. I'm not going to let a divorce or kids or anything like keep me in the way or keep that in the way of me achieving that. Can you speak to like the women who may not see that as like an easy course or pathway for them? Absolutely. It's like, how do you continue like striving and completing that mission, even though you have like all of these things?
Yeah, I think really what it comes down to, like when we think about our mission, like what is it that I want to accomplish and why is it that I'm doing these things? I think so many of us, we set goals because it's like the thing that we should do, right? So like I think about New Year's resolutions, I think is a classic, right? Like what's a New Year's resolution? Oh, I need to lose weight. Well, why should I lose weight? Well, because somebody told me that I should. I see all these commercials like all around the new year about all these different things and I need to get my gym membership, all that stuff. But then if you really take a second to think about it, like, is that something that you want to do for you, or are you doing that just because you're being so influenced from the outside?
So
and like for me going with school, and there were so many moments, trust me, over the course of 4.5 years, I was like, I can't do this. Like I need to quit. This is ridiculous. Like how could I even think that I would accomplish this thing? And so many times I wanted to quit, but then I reminded myself, like, this is the thing that I am doing for me. And you know, people talk about being selfish, and I think there's something to that. It's not about being selfish, but I took a minute and said, like, why am I really doing this? Well, one, because just continuing to grow is so incredibly important, and I think that like we can just learn so many different things. But two, I was thinking about what is the example that I'm setting for my kids, right? So I have 2 boys. They're very little. I'm born in 2018 and 2020, so they are very little people who may not even remember this point in time, which is okay. But I just kept thinking, like, what is it as a mom? What is it that I want to demonstrate for my kids, right? Like, how can I be strong for my kids? How can I be strong for others? And like, again, if I'm asking people to push themselves, like, I can keep doing this too. And sometimes you just put your head down and you get the job done.
Right. I love that. So, okay, putting your head down, getting the job done. How do you do that in the midst of the storm, right? And maybe let's go back to the storm of, let's say, your divorce and like navigating that, like even just seeing you today, and maybe there's a lot of behind the scenes that like girl, obviously
so many things.
Obviously that like you're like, oh, only if you knew what really happened. But just like when I see you today and when you talk about it, I'm like, I could never imagine that, because you show up so intentional and just like, you know, smiley, like positive and just energetic and ready to serve and give whatever message that you have in your heart that day. Even when you came to present for the Women's Omni group, and oh my gosh, so it was fun. Just like, wow, like you just have this thing. Like there's a real thing about people having like the it factor. And it's like, you're one of those people that's like, you have the it factor.
Oh, man.
But like,
am I like turning bright red right now? Because I just feel that.
but like, I just think it's beautiful. And so if you can just speak on like that storm you went through and like, how were you able to navigate through that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things is acknowledging what's going on, right? And I think there were so many challenges that were happening all at once, and I think many of us probably do this, and I think especially often women do this, right? Like there's a mess going on, but we just have to, we know that there's a job to be done, and we just have to do it, and we have to say that all is well, right? Like how many times do you pass somebody during the day, you're just like, hey, how's your day going? Oh, it's fine, and then you just move on. But, you know, I can't help but wonder, especially after all sorts of different things that happened, like how many people, everybody kind of has their stuff, is what I like to call it, right? We all have our stuff. There are things happening for each of us, and I think that when we can acknowledge what that stuff is and we can name that thing, then that's where I can say, all right, I need help in this area. Like I was up so late at night and so early in the morning working on things, and then I still had a house to maintain, and I had my small children full time, and I just knew that I needed to reach out for help. And the other thing that I think is so important too is just setting those short-term goals, right? Like if I can just make it through this thing, then I'm getting so much closer to my overall goal. Because sometimes when we set goals, they're like, getting the doctorate, for example, it's so far out that it can feel overwhelming. But there's some days that you have to get up in the morning and like define for you today, like what does good look like? Like what would make me feel successful today? And I heard this one time from a great friend of myself. I was like, well, I should be able to do all of these things. She's like, Lindsay, don't should on yourself, right?
That's so good.
Yeah, and it's so, how many times do we say like, I should be able to, or I should do this, or I really need to do this, but why? What is it? What purpose is it serving? Right? You just have to figure out those priorities and don't shit on yourself. Make whatever you can happen.
You know, it reminds me of when you presented and you said you did the exercise around Hunt for the Good.
Yes.
And it was even like that simple exercise forced everyone in the room to think about, what were 3 good things that happened to you today? And not like, I went to work and like the basic, like I had a good day, but like it really just put you in a thought process of thinking like, what were the good things that happened today? And I think just like being really optimistic can be very helpful. And I know like some people may think, oh, be positive, like that, you know, old story is boring, but it's just like, as I get older, I'm realizing like that is so important. And even like the power of words, like what you speak over yourself in your day, like honey.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm getting like a mirror reflection lately. Like, Danielle, you are speaking out the life that is happening, but you have also like the power to control that.
Yeah. Well, and how often do we just second guess ourselves, right? And so when you think about looking for that good stuff, right? You think about looking for that. What are 3 just good things that happened? It's amazing how much that can reshape your day. But over the course of the day, I can guarantee you the long list of times today, I was like, oh my gosh, is this like, am I doing this okay? Is this right? Like, what?
Oh my God.
Yeah, and we just second guess ourselves so much.
Okay, let's go into that because even I'll be transparent. As I was setting up today, you're like, Danielle, stop apologizing.
100%. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. But like you saying that, it's like I recognize that I do that on a daily basis. And I'm like, I literally recently asked myself, I'm like, why do I apologize? Why do I feel like I'm in this space of like, I'm feeling sorry, but really like deep down I'm not. Like I'm like intentional, not like in a bad way, like, oh, I wanted to like intentionally hurt you or do this, but like, I don't know, I think it goes back to people pleasing.
No, 100%, yes. And let's think about the I'm sorry, right? So like even your example that you just shared, like we were 2 minutes behind what we thought we were going to be, and you're like, I'm sorry. Okay, like, and I think like so often that comes from such a good place, right? And for me, one of the things that I've learned a lot, and I'm trying to do better, because I was taught this by a phenomenal mentor of mine, and I'm like, it just makes so much sense. But when we say we're sorry, like make sure that it's something that we're really sorry for. If it's an inconvenience thing,
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
But if it's like for many of us, I think it's just like a habit,
Yes.
right? Like if I do something that's not quite right, it's almost like a filler that I use as I
Yeah.
just say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When instead, why not say, hey, we're running a couple minutes behind. Like that's
Right.
all you have to say. Right?
Yeah.
It's, okay, we can adjust from there. It's
Yeah.
no big deal.
Wow,
Yeah.
honey, I hope you guys are enjoying this like free like coaching right now, because this is literally like a coaching moment.
Hey,
And I'm
Danielle,
like,
we can do this all
I
day.
love this.
Yeah.
But like we also need that accountability partner.
Yes.
To keep us like in line, because as we've been like slowly like working together, it's just like I've been really fascinated by the mindset that you have, because it's just another reminder, like this is why I want to be around more like-minded women, and women that honestly like think better than me, so I can like just rise to a different level and like really like just grow differently and mature differently. And I think it does require people that just know a little bit more than you. Like you can't be the only person in your friend group or in the room that knows the most. And if you are, then like you're not growing.
Yeah, there's
You
so
know?
many people that talk about that, like who are the people that you surround yourself with, and if they're people that are challenging you, then keep them around.
Yeah.
But boy, it can be so easy to
Yeah.
get people who are just like, yes, Danielle, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Or Lindsay, I love this thing. Like, yeah, we
Right.
need those hype people too. And Danielle, I will be your hype girl
Yeah.
all day. Huge
Honey,
fan.
please.
10 out of 10 recommend. But I think about that from the angle too of like, I heard a great friend of mine one time, Justin Sua, he does sports psychology with a bunch of different teams.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he said is oftentimes people don't need a prescription, they need a perspective.
Yes.
And so when we think
So
about like who are
good.
the people that we're having the conversations with, who are the people that we're like asking these questions, because I think again, a trap that I think generally women fall into
Yeah.
is we may have all of these thoughts, all these ideas, all these different things going through our head, but we don't say those things out loud.
Right.
And if we don't say them out loud, then there's nobody who can challenge that perspective or can invite a new way of thinking or help
Right.
you look at a situation differently or have more of that optimism, right?
Yeah.
And if I didn't have so many of the mentors that I have had throughout my life, I think I would be a very different person and not necessarily a great way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go into that mentorship and
Yeah.
why it's important and why women need it, because I think it is a space that many of us don't have access to.
Yeah.
Maybe because we don't know how to go about finding a mentor, or maybe we admire someone and we don't have the courage to say, hey, can you be my mentor?
Yeah.
How do you, or what advice would you give to women to encourage them to go about finding a mentor?
So I think a few things, and you said a couple key things in there too, but I think one of the key things is to think about what is it that you hope to gain from a mentor, right? I think talking about mentorship is something that people are like, oh, I should have a mentor. But if we don't have that purpose in mind,
Yeah.
then that relationship can't be as great as it could be, right? So think about, why is it that you want a mentor? What is it
Yeah.
that you want to learn from someone? What is it that you could help gain? And also, what is it that you have to give? Because I
Right,
think
that's good.
mentoring works both ways, right? So anytime that I reach out to someone and ask
Yeah.
for them to mentor me, they do the same, and like they ask stuff of me. And so I
Right.
need to understand, like, what is it that I have to give? And trust me, we all have things that we can give
Yeah.
to any relationship, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a critical piece. I think the other piece is too, I think that people are so much more kind than we like make up in our head,
Yeah,
right? And so
for
we may
sure.
feel intimidated to reach out to someone, but hey, trust me, I love a cup of coffee. Like so many people, there's tea, there's soda, like you got all kinds of
Yeah,
options, right?
that's
If you
true.
reach out and say, hey, Danielle, do you have time to grab a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
I guarantee you, people are going to be more willing to say yes than no. And
Right.
if they say not right now, it's probably because their schedule doesn't allow it, but it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you can't ask again in the future.
Exactly.
And I think the other thing to keep in mind, if you're thinking about a mentor, is what's the worst thing that someone can say, right? So if you reach
right.
out to someone and say, hey, Danielle, can we get together?
Yeah.
The worst thing that person could say is just a flat out no.
Right.
How often are you going to get a flat out no, though, right? We were talking about like being
Yeah.
kind and like people pleasing.
That's
like,
true.
I don't know that many people flat out say no. And the other
Yeah.
thing is too, even if they do say no, well, at least you tried, right?
Right,
And it
right.
doesn't mean maybe this person's not the right one, but I'm a
Exactly.
firm believer that everything happens for a reason.
All the time.
And there are so many great people that you can reach out to and build those connections with.
Yeah.
So yeah, just do it. Just pick up the phone. We don't even pick up the phone anymore. We don't have like the yellow pages or
Girl,
anything.
we're, like,
Now I'm
sending
feeling
text
old.
messages.
I know. Find
Pick
that
up the
number, send
phone.
that text message, connect on LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever it
They're
is.
going to be
right?
reaching out on TikTok
I know.
nowadays.
Oh my God. I
Literally.
TikTok.
Yeah,
I can't
that's
even
a
get
whole
into that
thing.
yet.
I
Yeah,
don't
that
know.
is a whole thing. I'm not there yet. But anyway, reach out, use the socials, use whatever avenues it is. But yeah, just reach out. I think that's
Yeah.
the best thing that you can do. And if you need someone to like push you, I will gladly write the message for anyone out there. So you let me know and I'll make it happen.
Yeah, you're a good cheerleader.
Hey, always. I love it. If I didn't have my cheerleaders, then I wouldn't be where I'm at. And I love helping other people to do things too.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I think everything you mentioned is so key and so good. And I think that if more people have questions about mentorship or how to go about it, like definitely reach out to Lindsay. Like she will help you on how to like do everything properly in the right way. But like you said, if someone says no, like it's very rare, but if it does happen, and maybe it's not for you. But let's get into the space of imposter syndrome, kind of like getting people a little tease for the event. First of all, like, why is this topic important to you?
Yeah, so it's so important to me because I think I've been in so many unique situations where I've thought to myself that like, I don't know if I deserve to be here, right? And so when I started my professional career, got my first big person job, if you will, big deal, I was working with the United States Army. And my job was working with infantrymen because at the time no women were allowed in the infantry. And I showed up to this fort in El Paso, Texas. I knew nothing about the military. And I was like, I don't know if I deserve to be here, right? Like these people that I'm working with on a daily basis and the amazing things that they do, like I don't know that I deserve to be in this space. And there's so many examples too. And I think many of us have probably been here where like people have maybe like questioned us or like made comments. Like I can even think back, I had this 4th grade teacher who told me at one point that girls should not be good at math. And I was like, I was entered in this math competition, and she told me and my parents, like, girls should not be good at math. And that had such an effect on me. It still has an effect on me. Like, my older sister is an amazing accountant, and I'm like, I just steer clear of anything to do with math. Hopefully my kids will be fine. We'll see. But it's so interesting because I think, like, so many of those experiences that we have really shape kind of how things affect us and the beliefs that we have. And so many of us can question, like, do I deserve to be here? And I think oftentimes the answer is yes. We just have to give ourselves the permission.
I'm interested, like, what got you into this space of learning, like, the development piece of, like, imposter syndrome? Resiliency is another topic that you love to present on when you are presenting. Where did that thought process, like, come from?
Yeah, I think it's amazing. Things just kind of evolve. And so I like to think of myself like a plumber that has a leaky pipe or an accountant that can't balance a checkbook.
Oh my gosh.
I went into sports psychology originally because in tennis, I was a huge head case. Like I was a mess out on the tennis court. I would stare down my opponents. Like if their hair was out of place, like I would just crumble. And then I was a swimmer, and in swimming, it's like I'd get in and out of the water. It was fine. I got to be a part of teams that broke school records, like went to state, like all these things. And I was like, why is this so different? And so that led me kind of down this path. And then naturally, just learning more about people and how we operate. Working with the Army in particular, I got the opportunity to work with resilience. And Dr. Karen Rivich was a phenomenal mentor of mine. She taught me so many of the things that I know. And working with soldiers to help them learn how to be more resilient, working with family members as their soldiers were deployed overseas and working with them and like, how do you work through these challenges? I just appreciate so much about how if we change the way that we think, we can change our trajectory in such amazing ways. But again, it's not about a prescription, you need perspective, right? And so I just am fascinated by how people work, and just anything I can do to help people is just, that's what I love to do. And I'm a nerd and I love to learn. So that's, you know, that's the other big part of it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's go into the space where you used to work in the Army. I totally forgot. Like, what was that experience like, being the only female? Or were you the only female during that time?
So I had, in my office, I had a few other women that I was working with. And it was really interesting. I think that, I like to think that I kind of grew up with the Army because I learned so much about what it means to be a professional. I learned so much about just how to work with different people. And I had a boss at the time who said, you know what, Lindsay, one of the most disappointing things you will ever learn is that regardless regardless of the uniform that you wear, the position that you hold in an organization, or what you do for a living, at the end of the day, we're all just people. And it was fascinating because when I would walk into a room full of soldiers, and here I was, this 22-year-old woman, fresh out of school, like, I'm here to change the world, right? Like, and what am I going to teach this room full of like 200 soldiers who have been through and seen more things that I could ever possibly imagine. And it was so interesting because I learned so much from them. And one of the things that I really take away from that entire experience is at the end of the day, we are all human beings. And not just that, but we really can learn from each other. So anytime I'm in a room with people, anytime I'm having conversations with people, I hope that like I get to work with folks so that they learn something from me, but I also have the opportunity to learn from them and their experiences. And I feel like when those two things can come together, it's just an amazing world. So
I think that is beautiful. And it's interesting because like I'm sure you've learned so much from that perspective, like not being the only woman, but being amongst the women in that vicinity. Because nowadays there's a lot of women working in those spaces, believe it or not. But there's not enough coaching, I think, on how to like thrive or be who you were called to be. I said it in the episode that I was on, but like serving in small places and like really knowing how to take the space that you're in and like own it, right? Even if like you are amongst many men, right? I think we have to really like shift our mindset and not kind of just like fall to the victim and be like, well, this is my story and this is why. But it's like you can rise to the occasion, or you could rise to the circumstance and believe that you are called here for a reason. So go into that room and serve fully, you know? But I think, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, but I think that we as women, like, I don't know, I think that's where I was kind of speaking to the space of like, I don't know yet if I fully believe in this space of like, I do believe like imposter syndrome is real, but I wonder if it's something that we create in our own mind. Like, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, so when I think of imposter syndrome, the way that I like to define it is that we lack confidence in our competence. And we're afraid of somebody else finding out. Right? Like I think that's really so what it comes down to, because when we think about this imposter syndrome, we can go into some place and we can think to ourselves like, do I belong here? What's going to happen if I screw up? Like, what are the consequences? We're already anticipating kind of this worst case scenario, and we oftentimes haven't even done anything yet. I was at an event the other day welcoming like some new employees into the organization, and there was this girl who came up to me, and I introduced myself to her and just, you know, kind of got a little bit of her story. And I was like, so what are you looking forward to about like joining this organization? And she said, well, I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to rise to the occasion. And I looked at her and I was like, well, here's the thing though. Like if we stop and think about it, right? Like anytime like an organization brings you in, they brought you in for a reason. Like somebody believes in you. And oftentimes it's not just one person. There's a whole slew of people that believed in you. And then it's amazing how we can get into these spaces and then we second guess ourselves. Instead of looking at as like there are people here who already believe in me, right? They chose me. Out of all of these people, they chose me. And how can we reframe our thinking to rising to the occasion, to capitalizing on the opportunity, and taking it more of a like, how do I prove that like, yes, this is where I'm meant to be?
Okay. Going back to the idea of second guessing yourself, I think it goes back to what you said, the lack of competence, right? But I think that space of like maybe having the lack of competence, we have the opportunity to take control by just educating ourselves, to have the confidence to know that I am competent to be in this room or serve here. You know what I'm saying? And so my partner tells me all the time that like, we lack so much education, but education is really going to provide you so much value. Like become a person of value, don't become somebody. Like when you become a person of value, then you're able to operate competently in that space. And so I can say for sure right now, it's like, if I'm going into spaces with fear, it's because I didn't maybe research about the event, or like I didn't do as much, you know, preparing for the event itself. And so in that space, I kind of go in with less expectations. It's like, I'm just here to maybe like absorb and like receive rather than give. So I'm working on that space of like, educating myself and becoming more confident in the things that, like, even though I'm not like, I would say like called to, let's say, a certain topic or anything, but I could still educate myself on certain things, even though I'm not like studying it on a daily basis, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Getting familiar with the news, what's going on in the world, like basically like get comfortable studying something you're not familiar with is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, because if what do they say? We learn most when we're outside of our comfort zone. So just challenging yourself. And I think too, when we think about this idea of confidence, we really get confidence from 4 different places. So one of them is like, if I have the opportunity to do something for myself, right? Like there's no better way to build confidence than if I have the opportunity to try something out for the first time and I have even a little amount of success. Can go a really long way. Something else that we've talked a lot about too is this idea of like the mentoring, right? So we can build our confidence by having conversations with other people. We can have them kind of be our cheerleader,
right?
And not necessarily in like a false sense of the term, but like really challenge us to think differently, to push us even harder, to like see what we can accomplish. Another place that we get, and this I think speaks a little bit to what you're talking about with kind of the experience of if I go in nervous, another place that we can get confidence is really thinking about like, if I'm nervous about something, why is it that I'm nervous? A lot of times, absolutely, it could be a part of the fact is like, I didn't prepare myself as much as I would have liked to, right? I feel like we can always prepare more for anything that we do, but at some point we just got to say like, it's plenty good enough and we're going, right?
I'm going in.
Yeah,
Here we
exactly.
go.
We're going in. But there's something to be said too, that like, if we're nervous about something, we really do care. Like we really want to do a good job. And when we think about it in that way, then that kind of helps us to look at things a little bit differently. Like I've been doing public speaking for more years than I would love to admit at this point in time. But I still get so nervous going into
you do not.
I know. See, and everybody
That's
says
crazy.
that. If you watch, my face turns like this flash of bright red anytime before I get in front of a group of people, because I just always want to do a good job. Like I want to to connect with people. I care. I want to make sure that like what I'm doing adds value. But when you don't know a group of people, you have no idea how people are going to respond. But I'm nervous because I care. So I've accepted that my face will turn bright red and it'll go away. And that just means that I'm ready.
I don't even see that. I think you're the only one that feels it.
Now everybody's going to be watching for it now.
I know, right? We're like, okay, did she turn red or not?
I intentionally don't wear red because then people will compare the shade of red on my face to my shirt. So yeah, it's a
and
whole
then you're
thing.
like a tomato.
Yes. Oh my gosh, girl. I'm like, I'm getting hot now.
Stop. Hilarious. Okay, so as we are coming to a close, first of all, what are you hoping that people take away from the Rise and Thrive conference? There's going to be many people coming from different walks of life, right? Different perspectives, different avenues, which is what I'm really excited about. But from your perspective, when you are in these rooms of women and going to these women events, what do you always hope that women take away?
Yeah, I think a few things. One, I think really just this idea of the contagious energy that an amazing group of women can have.
Yeah.
I love that energy and being able to carry that forward. I think that's just such a good opportunity. I think too, what I really hope that women will take away from this experience is building more of that confidence, right? Like having some of those conversations with each other. I know that networking and building relationships is such a critical part of this. So I hope that people will take advantage of that and be able to continue those relationships moving forward, to just continue to build their confidence and know you may not have all of the answers today, but as you keep working and you keep pushing, things will start to become so much more clear and call on those people around you to make it happen.
I love that. I love that so much.
It's going to be a great time. I cannot
Honey,
wait.
You're going to be like on fire, literally. Okay, so keeping you accountable as well. You have a business of your own, and you're talking about mentorship and things like that. How can people get in contact with you? Do you offer something for women to be a part of that they can work with you in some way?
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody wants to get in touch with me, LinkedIn is probably your best bet. So Lindsay Roberts on LinkedIn. And then I am on Instagram, all the socials too, at Lindsay M. Roberts. So
don't forget the doctor, honey.
Oh, yeah.
We worked hard for that.
I know. Let's talk imposter syndrome, though. Like,
Dr. Lindsay Roberts, hello. Let's make sure we emphasize on that.
I like going by Lindsay, though. The doctor makes my face turn bright red.
Stop it. Okay, like Bonnie said, when's the book coming out?
Oh, man, girl, I got a long way to go if that thing's going to happen. So,
no, it is going to happen.
Okay, we'll
it
see.
Is.
You know,
but is that something you desire, though? Being an author?
You know, I think the idea of like taking stories from people and being able to share those with others of like lessons learned. I mean, I think just with leadership, the way that I view leadership is it's choose your own adventure. And so every single decision that as leaders, as people that work with other people, like those small decisions kind of set the path for us. And so I think, you know, there might be something there. I don't know. We'll see. Bonnie said to. So I feel
I'm
like
just saying, you heard it here first, okay? Literally. So, but if you were to write a book, though, would it be focused on that, on leadership and relationships?
Yeah. So for my doctorate, actually, I studied psychological safety, which is another just really important thing to me, which is all about how do you create a space where people feel comfortable speaking up, where people feel like they can take a risk, where they can question things and not feel like they're going to get in trouble, especially in the workplace. And that's something that's just really close to home to me because I've been in situations where psychological safety has been there and you can ask those tough questions and you can challenge people and the innovation is amazing. And I've been in situations where if I speak up, I feel like I'm going to get in trouble in some way and innovation just does not exist and making forward progress doesn't exist. So psychological safety is, it's all about taking risks.
I don't know why I want to like poke the bear there because I feel like there's so many women that feel silenced.
Yes.
Especially in the workplace.
Yes. But your voice is so important and there has to be like.
So did you have an experience like where you felt silenced and then that was like something where you were like, do you want to dive into that?
Yeah, there's like a series of things that happen, right? Like I think about, I hate this analogy, but it's like the slow boiling frog. I just hate that picture so much, but I don't know what else to call it. But so there was a leader that I had at one point in time who I was very excited for, like strong female. And I was like, yes, so many things to learn, which I did learn so much from her and I'm grateful for that. But just the way that, you know, you'd be asked to take on a project, you'd be asked to do something, and I would come with these different ideas, and then it always ended up being the way that they wanted things done, which is a way that they did it before at a different organization before they came in. And so slowly over time, I just got quieter and quieter and quieter. And I started to notice just like how I didn't love going to work anymore, how my energy was drained. I was not the person at home that I wanted to be because I had such a short fuse that like I wasn't having as much fun with my kids anymore. And when it comes to things like physical safety, you have to have an environment where you can speak up if something is wrong, right? I think about, you know, in the workplace too, any sort of like harassment issues. I mean, how many times do you hear like people don't feel comfortable speaking up about that? Well, it's because there's not this environment of psychological safety. And if I speak up because something happened, am I going to get in trouble for that versus the issue being addressed? And so I feel very strongly about so many of those things. That it's just everybody deserves to be seen, heard, and valued at work. And that's really, when you think about resilience, when you think about fighting imposter syndrome, when you think about psychological safety, when you think about just being a great leader, be that as an individual or be that as a true people leader, like those things are just so important.
Wow. Lindsay, you just said a whole thing. I think you just broke so like, no, seriously, like you broke so many chains right now because like you're speaking to like a huge audience of women that feel that in the workplace and they don't know how to use their voice. They don't know how to speak up. And so if you could just really quickly, because I know this is a whole coaching session, so you have to hit her up. But if you could list off 3 things or more, however, on how women can overcome that. What are some things that you suggest that we could probably take action right now?
So I think one of them is find like your best friend at work. Like who is somebody that if you're having a tough day or if you're struggling with something or you're curious about something, like who's somebody that you can call? So that would be number one. Find like that best friend at work, that person that you can go to. I think the second piece would be to, as much as you can, establish relationships kind of across the organization. Because a lot of times if we have something that we want to speak up about and it's not being heard, there's probably something going on that maybe we don't know about, not like gossipy, but
Yeah.
but there's something like organization-wide that might be going on. And so it's good to just kind of have those relationships across the organization. And I think the third thing is it goes back to like, there are all these ethics campaign about if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
But truly, like if you see something, if something doesn't feel right, trust your gut and speak to somebody about that. And I think that's, you know, the best thing that you can do. And there's so many things as leaders. I think that leaders can really help to set the tone in this. And one of the things that leaders can do is really to invite people in and ask them questions.
Wow.
So
that's so good.
I could talk all day about
I know you can. That's why I'm like, dang, we're running out of time. We need more time. But this is why you have to come to the conference to hear more, or set up a time to talk with you, because honey, you are like full of wisdom.
Hey, you know, I appreciate from a lot of great people. I appreciate you, and I cannot wait to meet so many fabulous people and to just, I can't wait for all of the learning and all of the energy that's going to come out of this.
Oh yeah,
I am
it's going to be fun.
Excited and cannot wait to be a part of it. So thank you, Danielle, for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you.
It's going to be awesome.
Everyone, that was Dr. Lindsay Roberts. Thanks for watching. Way to kill it, honey. Yes.
Good.
Well, there you have it. That is this week's episode on Behind the Spotlight podcast. Hey, do me a favor. If you found value in this episode, I love to hear your thoughts on your key takeaways. So please take a moment to share your feedback by simply leaving a review for this episode. This show can grow to bigger heights with the support of you. It takes 2 seconds to write a quick review on Apple or Spotify. Or better yet, how about you just snap a screenshot and share on your social media? Just don't forget to tag me so I can personally connect with you. Your insights might just be what someone else needs. So let's make an impact together.